Hello, everyone. Welcome to GillHB and Friends. Today, I'm just having a chat with Jenny. Jenny, you've been on my podcast before. We're old friends. We're both coaches, but we work in very different ways. And we just decided we're not going to talk about anything in particular today. We're just going to go with the flow, aren't we? So whatever
Yes,
comes up, we're going to
yes.
talk about
And
and
there's
see how we
always a
get on.
lot, isn't there? That's the thing.
Yes, there's always a lot with you and I as to what we're going to talk about, where we're going to go. I mean, I started off just there by saying we're both coaches, but both do very different types of things because I know you're very similar to me, and everybody gets hung up about niching, don't they? Whether it's in business, in podcasts, in no, you've got to have a niche, you've got to have a niche. And that's exactly what I was told as a coach
Mm,
when I trained, and I pushed against it. And I'm quite glad that I became much more of a generalist type coach
mm.
because I'm still working as a coach. A lot of my friends who were training with me, who niched, actually are no longer coaching because they couldn't make it
Mm.
work as, a full-time job. But how about you?
So this is a topic that, we are so alike in so many ways. When I first started doing this business, I remember going into groups and being told to niche. I have to be candid and say, hands up, I'm an anti-nicher, but I'm going to also justify it. Here's why. I'm an anti-nicher because for me personally, when I started off in business and people were saying, oh, you've got to do this or you've got to do that and blah, 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 I literally felt like somebody had a straitjacket on me. It's
Yeah.
like asking me to talk without moving my hands. I'm like, oh, I can't speak. So I found it really like quite suffocating. And at the time, I was doing kind of training and coaching and cakes and chocolates. So being asked just to pick one thing was really suffocating. But I feel like just for the marketers out there or people that have had their roots in marketing, a little explanation of where this came from. In more traditional marketing, you're encouraged to niche so that you can speak to a particular audience. The problem with that is, as time has moved on, we've become, as a society, regardless of
Mhm.
where we are in the world, we've become more entrepreneurial. So we're more designed to do more than one thing. You've got people like Richard Branson and Oprah,
Mm.
and for the Brits who are watching this, Jane Asher, an actress who then started to make these gorgeous cakes. People don't stay doing one thing anymore. Even as employees, getting their carriage clock after 50 years of going. So it feels really restrictive, and quite a lot of the time, the people that decide, well, I am going to just stay down one track, are doing it because somebody else has told them to, and
Mhm.
it's sad to me because they're not listening to what's inside.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. And I
Yeah.
know with a lot of my clients now that, and particularly myself, I don't niche in coaching. And if
Mm,
you follow me on Instagram, I definitely don't niche on there. It's just me. And you see everything that I do, whether that's, again, willow weaving, because I'm interested in that. And I'll do upcycling because I'm interested in that. And I go for walks and I'll post about that. And the amount of people say, oh, no, 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 you've got to have separate. If you just want gardeners, you've just got to do about gardening. And if you just, and I have got a couple of other ones, but to be honest, Jenny, I don't have time to run three different Instagram accounts because
no.
one lot say, well, the generalists just want to see it all. And then you put it on, I don't know, my upcycling account, and you think, well, the same people are watching that that's watching this. In the end, I thought, I just don't have time. And a lot of clients I will encourage, particularly these days, to have portfolio careers. Don't wait until you lose your job.
Mm,
If you're wanting to do something, it's amazing how many people don't have another string to their bow or don't have a hobby
mm.
and can't think about what they want to do. Or it gets to the point, oh my God, I'm redundant. What am I going to do now? I've
Yeah.
even got one client who's a business owner who doesn't want to give up his business. Well, he does. He wants to sell it and get out. But then he's like, but I don't know what I do. And I just don't want to curl up and die. And I'm like, me, you're the same. I've got ideas coming out my head that go, I'm never going to live long enough, to have a go at this and have a go. And I think I don't know about you, I think that's also the problem. People are afraid to have a go at
Mm,
something. They want to be perfect straight away now because we live in this perfect
mm.
society. and people are just afraid to have a go.
It's interesting because when people say to me, I don't know what else I'd do, I want to say to them, that's not true.
Hmm.
And you'll know this through your coaching stuff as well. When you are that direct with somebody and get them just to sit with it for a minute, isn't it funny how they then say, well, ever since I was a child, I wrote poetry and I've got, kept diaries over the years and I could publish 6 books. Or, I often go into people's houses and say, I think your sofa would look better over there and blah, blah, blah. They do these seemingly random things and they push it out of their mind. And I think it's kind of like a pure mix of self-judgment and judgment from
Mm.
others. They're worried that they should look a certain way. We've got people that we can take so much inspiration from nowadays, from all sorts of places, but sometimes that causes people to be more like them when actually the joy comes from being more like you. So I love the fact that you do like the willow weaving and the coaching and different things. I think that makes you not just a more fully rounded person, but just a bit more interesting, you know? Oh, wow, you're a coach as well. Oh, wow, interesting. What kind of things do you help with? Well, actually, all sorts of things. I've
Yeah.
helped people with this, and this. I think it's brilliant, and it humanizes people. And one of the things that I still think we're affected from since the pandemic, like post pandemic, although can you believe it's been 6 years?
I know.
I still think people have got this post-pandemic hangover where for some of them life shifted and wasn't quite the same again.
Mm.
And for some it was liberating. If you think about the difference between, can you remember the first few weeks of the pandemic where people are like, I love it, I'm speaking to my neighbours that I didn't know, I'm helping the old lady across the road with her garden, and kind of like having this romanticized love for the world. But people were actually doing it, learning skills, spending more time
Yeah.
with people. And then 6 years on, like, where
That's
did that
gone.
ambition go? Where did that drive go? Where did that real you-ness go to? And I definitely think, it's been tainted. Things haven't been the same again. And there are upsides and positives, but that piece saddens me.
I mean, it's also, the advancement so much now on social media and youngsters playing games and people then afraid to meet people. I've had the working from home. That is great that, I don't have to go into London every day and I'm saving a fortune on the train. This is
Mm,
one couple, and well, it's based on, but if I have to go into London every day or every 3 days, or the cost is phenomenal, then we won't be able to pay for the mortgage. And then recognizing, but I'm losing my confidence because I'm at home and I forgot how much just going out, not
mm,
actually talking to people, but just mingling with people on a train station, on a train, at Waterloo or wherever,
mm.
just helps with the confidence levels. And actually, your world, if you're not careful and make the effort, your world shrinks and your
Yeah.
confidence shrinks with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think about that as you were saying that. It's almost like the social skills have diminished because of it, but
Hmm.
also because people are now looking through the lens of online. There are people that think only online is the only way forward, where you and I will know that there are people thriving in businesses that don't do stuff online. And
Yeah.
if you don't believe me, people, check out a guy called Cal Newport, who is an eight New York Times best-selling author who has never ever had a social media profile ever.
Mm.
He now has got something on YouTube that he's done for a couple of years or a few years. People like James Dyson, most people in the UK will know who James Dyson is.
Hmm.
Try and find him on social media. One of your old faves, George Clooney,
No, no,
never
not
had a
there.
social media account.
No.
And I have to talk about more known people so that people get it. But there are a lot of people out there doing a lot of stuff in the world who aren't looking through this lens. Therefore, they do go out, they do socialize. And also, what they don't do is, I want to say, obsess. So when you can scroll on Instagram or Facebook and you'll get the 10 things you do as an ADHD
Oh.
woman, and then all of a sudden you're scrolling, you're like, yeah, that's me, that's me, that's me. Oh, well, ADHD might mean that you can't do this thing or you can do that thing.
Hmm.
So people almost self-diagnose kind of social anxieties, and there are social anxieties,
Oh, huge.
but they also self-diagnose, so kind of put themselves in that box, which is like niching yourself into, well, I can't go out and meet people. You can, you just need to know ways of how to do that, you know?
Yeah,
So,
I agree. It's, it's again coming niche and self-diagnosing, and this is who I am, and oh, that explains that. And I won't fit in, or I don't look right, or, people, I don't know, pridey outfits on, their Instagram saying, "Oh, look at me." But we all know there's the other side of that, which you are
mm,
definitely not seeing. But of
yeah,
course, we fill in the gaps, don't we? So we
yeah,
see somebody like myself, depends on your definition of success. I have earned a living and been able to pay mortgages and, etc. I could have earned, you and I met when you were in corporate and I'd just left. And yeah, I could have stayed in corporate and I could have earned a fortune, but I didn't want to. I could have
mm,
had more money, but again, I think it's reevaluating as you get older, and a lot of people don't do that. They
yes,
don't reevaluate where we are, even with their partners. Where we
mm,
are, where do we want to be in 5 years? I'm
mm,
working with quite a few, mainly males, because I think they're definitely suffering these days, having a son as well.
yeah,
And it's very difficult to know where you fit
mm,
in terms of, should I do this? Shouldn't I do that? Should I open the door? Shouldn't I? That. Excuse me. Should I stand up? Should I not? Should I offer my seat? It's all, it's so convoluted now and difficult in some ways in the
yeah,
world.
yeah,
And I think guys are getting, probably be slammed for this, but I think they're getting a hard time. A bit like you say, you start looking at stuff, and if it's narcissism or, misogyny or whatever, you're going to see loads of that. And I
mm,
think what we're missing is then seeing the other side, because not all guys are like that. My
no,
husband's not, my son's
mm,
not. And then you've got to look for people like Ben Fogel. He's lovely.
mm,
But you get the impression these days, oh, maybe it's my algorithm that's throwing that up, that, all men are bad, all men are terrible, all men are, well, actually, a lot of them are struggling. And I
mm,
often say to some women, but they're your husband, so is your husband horrible? Is your dad horrible? You've
mm,
got two boys, are they horrible? And again, it's that your algorithm will throw up more, which gives us a very skewed view of the world, doesn't it? So then you start, and that then turns, as you and I know, that then turns into a belief. I believe
mm,
this to be true.
yeah. And you're so right. People are getting lost, and they're getting lost on stuff, as you say, that's artificial.
Hmm.
So, I'm not totally against AI, but I'm wary and cautious of how it's used. And, algorithms, I mean, I'm not really the person to speak about this. My other half is really into sort of like I you know
Tech,
IT
IT.
tech and security and all of that kind of stuff. But very early on in the AI journey, he'd be working on projects, and he said it's about machine learning. So put in its simplest form, we teach our machines how to be.
Hmm.
So if, for example, we're looking at how we can help men because you're researching something, I know you pull a lot of this information out of your experience and insights, but let's say that you were researching something, it would assume that the reason why you are either looking at men like Ben Fogel and, people with great lives is because you clearly don't know anyone with horrible lives. So let's put some of those in front of you. Or conversely, you might be looking at some of the conversations that are going on. I know there's this big conversation around the manosphere. I'm not even going to go into that. But people are looking at those conversations, so it will show more of it. So, one
Mm.
thing that I did from a visibility perspective that I think we can all do is when you do go online, instead of mindlessly scrolling, be intentional. So, on Facebook, I have become morbidly fascinated with little baby gorillas. Oh my goodness, it's completely bonkers. So I started having a look at them, and now I would say 80% of my feed are like, mummy gorilla looking at baby gorilla, and they're so loving in like their families and stuff like that. But that's what I'm getting on my feed. And on the back of that, I get a lot of kind of community type stuff. I get a lot of like family stuff, kids. I get a lot of really cool stuff. So I've taught the machine what I want to see. You know,
But
it's
again, that's skewing it. And
mm,
also, Denny, I see some of those animal videos now and then think, oh, hang on a minute, that's AI. So it's actually even the videos you're seeing of the animals and oh, they're doing this and they're doing that, they're actually not real. But if you're not
in
careful, it throws it at you and you
yeah.
start to believe, oh, isn't this cute? And you think, no, this isn't real. But it's getting
Mm,
very hard already when
yeah.
AI is in its infancy to distinguish between real and AI. I'm even finding myself looking at some people that I know and querying, is that AI or is that you actually real? Oh no, Jill, that was I used AI for that, but I put myself in it. Or I'm like, what? I can't, I'm getting to the
Yeah.
point, I can't tell.
Yeah.
And again, you're skewing, you're getting all the lovely, lovely, lovely. And therefore, as you say, you're not seeing the horrible stuff. And yet other people will be researching narcissism is a big thing, isn't it, at the
Mm,
moment? You know, I didn't even really know the word sort of 10 years ago.
mm.
But now everybody seems to be narcissistic or got a narcissistic trait, and this is how you deal with them, and so on. And of course, yes, one of my friends is a specialist in it, and
Mm,
because I follow her, it throws up even more. But then
mm.
it tends to throw up women talking about narcissism, and
Yes.
therefore referring to partners. And again, we're back to, oh, this is really interesting,
Yeah.
what I'm getting shown. So
Yeah. It's
it's all,
interesting
we're
because
getting niched without wanting to be niched, if that makes.
yeah. And you can even dive deeper into those. So yeah, it's interesting. I did a video a couple of years ago on this whole therapy speak that's become common parlance. And again, we saw that explode in lockdown when people felt like they were trapped and all they had to do was look online. Gaslighting or being gaslit came into common language and gets misused. Narcissism, and it cracks me up when people say, well, they're a little bit of a narcissist. Is that a little bit being like you're a little bit pregnant? You either are or you're not. But the context of it is being used incorrectly. So we're seeing people say, oh, didn't like that so and so, they were narcissists. No, they weren't actually. They were just nasty, or they just took pleasure in doing something, but they weren't a narcissist.
Mm,
So even with like when you're scrolling for for stuff for your friend, you'll get the division of the women who are seeking help with narcissism, um, or got some sort of interest in finding out more about it. And then you will have the narcissistic posts by narcissists. And so you can even kind of drill down on that. So with my gorilla videos, for example, very quickly I started to notice what was AI and what wasn't. And it's a bit more helpful because now they also label it AI. But you start to notice things, and it still isn't perfect yet. Like mummy gorilla would be rocking baby gorilla, and then second baby gorilla would come in and then just disappear, or their foot wouldn't even be there, and you'd be like, "That's not right." So whenever I saw something like that, I either wouldn't click on it, or if I'd started to watch it, I would click off. And
yeah,
again, the real things returned.
yeah,
So again, with whatever it is you're looking at, you can do that. On Instagram, a really good tip is if you're searching for something, and you've got to remember you're fighting against on social media something that is made to have you click on things and stay on there. So
yeah,
if you feel like, oh well, I only went on there to go and look for Jill, and then all of a sudden I'm now watching how to make a cake with 12 layers. There's a reason for that. They've put a lot of hard effort into it. So when you're searching for something, Instagram's a good example because you get a grid of lots of
yeah,
things.
you do.
Have you ever noticed how distracted it is? You're like, oh, oh,
Yeah,
cheese and spinach
I'll
pastry
click on that. Yeah, I'm with you.
click.
Yeah.
And then an hour later, you're like, okay. So when you see that, if you're looking for something specific, take care. I don't want to say be careful because it's not like a warning, but take care what you're clicking on, because even out of curiosity, we can inadvertently then be teaching the machine or machine
Yeah,
learning that this is what I want to see, when it isn't. It was just our curiosity of something.
yeah.
So yeah.
I agree. It's about hopefully we'll come full circle and people will. actually want more real stuff and meet
Mm.
real people again, if you know what I mean, and get out there and want to talk face to face. I mean, I'm not knocking it because we're doing, we're doing the podcast here by using the video call, and so there's good, but I think like anything, you've got to be selective, and unfortunately, some people don't seem to be able to be selective or, dig deeper.
But
But
this
yeah,
is,
research. Did
but,
my when I did my psychology degree
mhm.
years and years ago, and I had to do the research module, I was like, oof, don't really enjoy this. But actually, it was really useful to then dig into the research, because you'll get, I don't know, University of so and so has done this research, but actually somebody has paid for them and paid
Mm.
for those researchers. And when you dig down, and there was one that I clearly remember was about, between breast milk and formula, and saying, no, no, there's no difference, and the researchers found this and the researchers found that. And we were taught to dig deeper, dig deeper. And who actually was funding, when you got all the way down, who was funding that research? Cow and
Yes.
Gate. And
Mm.
of course, it does skew, because, as we know, they'll put what they want in that report or that piece of research results,
Because they're
that
paying for it.
they're paying for it. Absolutely. So it's similar to that. So, yeah,
Yeah.
don't like niching. Like you, when people said I had to niche at the beginning, didn't like it. In the same way, I did training, but I didn't want to keep doing training. I get bored. I was talking to
Mm.
another friend who's a trainer. Said, "Oh God, no, it drives me mad. I pass it on to somebody else. I can't keep running the same program again and again and again and again. Different people, but you're still running the same program." And that's then where coaching came in, and then from that, I diverted a little bit more. And I think quite a few people are, yeah, very different to when I started work, which was,
Mm.
oh, if you've got more than one page on your CV, I mean, you've had more than one job, it shows you're flaky. You go join the bank and you've got a job for life type thing. I don't know why I chose the bank, but you've got a job. Well, that's not true anymore.
No.
And also, I think when you're recruiting, as I was when I was in management, if somebody only got one job and they'd been it for 15 years, actually it would go against them, because we would think, well, they're not flexible. They're not going to be able to come in, take on our core values, fit into our company very easily. And we were looking for people who'd got a wide range of experience. Isn't it
Yeah.
funny how life changes?
The thing is, it changes, but then in some respects, I think there are things that we're not learning from. So it's funny that you gave that as an example. I was speaking to somebody who's at university last week, and they were saying there's a job that they want to go for, like an internship. But when they approached them and spoke to them, they said, "Well, you don't have the experience." And I'm like, a university student, like, what experience do you expect them to have exactly? Unless they're like a more
Mm,
mature student. And interestingly, Google did some research many years ago along this machine learning for recruitment, and they had
yeah.
to, it's well documented, they had to get rid of it because they realised that the machine had learnt the same biases that the humans had as well. So we're seeing biases even to this day. We've got AI
Mm,
that are looking, that are reading the CV. So if you don't have the right keywords in there or whatever, it just
it kicks it out.
you've got people that are feeling like the students. Well, how am I meant to get any experience if I can't get my foot in
Mm,
the door? Then I have conversations with people who are older, 50 plus,
yeah.
in the workforce. They've got so many insights, so much experience, great with mentoring people around them, regardless of their ages or anything else that they identify with. Yet they're like have this feeling of being dismissed because they, maybe don't understand AI or don't like doing one particular thing, and it's not being seen as experience, and it's kind of being regurgitated all over again, which I think is so sad. Why do
Mm,
that? So we've moved forward, but in the same kind of breath we've moved backward a little bit
backwards.
in some, in some places as well. So yeah, it's quite disheartening, and at the same time, a bit like you, I'm a bit too stubborn just to sit by and let people take their lot. If someone says to me, "Oh, but they did this," I'm like, right then, heard about lumpy mail? This is a great visibility tip, Send them a letter. And I love it when I'm working with, like, I had a 20-year-old client, And she's like, lumpy mail, what do you mean? She's like, "Oh, I sent this email into this company. I really want to work with them. I followed them for years and, I haven't heard anything back." So the first question was, well, what did you say when you followed it up with them?
Didn't follow it
Can I,
up.
can I do that? Isn't that not rude? No. How long's it been since you've heard from them? Oh, 2.5, 3 weeks. And I said, you could send them a letter. And the eyes lit up, the pen started moving. And I just thought, like, this isn't even my rocket science yet.
No.
You can write a letter to them because it's likely that they won't receive as many letters as emails a day.
Correct.
And so that it gets attention, lumpy mail, put something in the letter that makes it lumpy, that's relevant, you know,
Yeah.
that grabs their attention. And this client thought I was a genius. I'm
But
like,
you are, Jenny, you are.
it was just like thinking outside the box and also doing what's relevant for the situation, which again, sorry, niches, if you're a big fan of this, but again, this is what niching sometimes can stop a person from doing. Thinking critically, what might work for Jill might not work for you, might not work for me. So,
Mhm.
this is why knowing ourselves, who we are, what we're about, is so important. So, when we are reaching out to different people, that we're reaching out as a human, it's going to work a lot more than me saying, do this, do that, or Jill allegedly coaching you but telling you that you have to do something. That's not how Jill works. And,
No,
you know,
it isn't.
so,
And
yeah.
again, it's about making sure that you've got the right clients so they know who you are. I'm not a fluffy
Mm.
coach. I'm much more of a open generalist. I don't go down the old, well, I think it's old fashioned. I'm not sure if they still train it. They might well do, of goal setting. I very much now go set the direction, you know. Thanks, Jenny.
What,
It's like that as
smart
well,
goals?
you know.
You
Yeah,
mean you
I
don't
mean,
like
this is
smart goals?
no, Jenny. I mean, there's a place for them, don't get me wrong. So if you've got a date, I don't know, an exam, or you've got to get something in by a certain date, then that is a goal. There's a specific date, you've got to get it in. Right, I can help you coach you to get that piece of work done so it's done by this date. Work on your mindset and why do you procrastinate and why do you go make a cup of coffee and water the plant and,
Mm,
rather than do your thesis or whatever it is you're doing. To me, that's a goal because it
mm,
has got an end date and you have to get that piece of work done, i.e., at work, it might be a presentation you've got to do. Absolutely, that's a goal. But other than that, I say set the direction. It allows for flexibility. It allows for you to go off and go down this route. I use the analogy, I always use the analogy of there's a million different ways to get from London to Manchester,
yeah.
and millions of different ways that you can do that. And that allows you to take the pause to go investigate, oh, what's down the M40? Oh, no, let me have a look
Mm,
and see what's over here. It also allows for curved balls. And don't we have
yes.
loads? I mean, COVID was a classic example. If you'd
Was
set a
it?
goal as a business, well, that went out the window, didn't it? I remember many years ago, Tony Robbins saying before smartphones, companies were working on 5 and 10 year plans. He said, well, if you were a company that was so goal orientated
Mm,
to a 10 year plan and then smartphones came in, well, that just screwed your plan up completely because everybody started working differently. So,
yeah.
no, I don't like smart goals.
There's a saying,
I
isn't there?
admit.
There's a saying, set your goals in stone and your plans in sand. And I think
Right.
that epitomizes exactly what you've said there because there are different routes. Funnily enough, I heard, I can't remember his first name, the original Saatchi and Saatchi guy. I remember reading this like very serious business magazine, a picture of him on the front, opening up an article, and he was like, they've obviously transcribed it. What the f? Is the point of setting a 10-year goal?
Mm.
And because he's got that credibility and everything else, but he said companies are setting 5 and 10 year plans, and it it seems obvious when we have this conversation and say it like this, but it's what stops people from moving forward because
Yeah.
they've got their eye on this, well, 5 years, 10 years, but they're not looking at what's happening in the here and
And you
now.
miss opportunities.
Yes.
That's what I found is people were missing. No, no, that doesn't fit with where I'm going. I can't go to that event or talk to that person or that business. And I just think, wow, you're missing so many. different opportunities by saying, yes, I will do that, or no, I won't. And
Mm,
people always say, oh, I want to have a plan B. And hang on, I've changed again through coaching now over the last few years. I said, we don't talk about a plan B, we talk about a future plan A. So
mm,
when they're looking at what am I going to do in 5 years, in 10 years, do I want to sell my business? What is it, what's my, and they'll refer to it, what's my plan B when I leave this business? I said, it's not your plan B because that makes it sound like it's inferior,
mm.
to plan A. So I've started saying, no, no, we call it future plan A.
I love
And,
that.
and the amount of people go, actually, that's what it is, isn't it? It's what I'm going to
Mm,
plan, not, oh God, I've stopped this. What am I going to do next?
mm,
It's no, this is my future plan, plan A.
mm,
And I work with them, and it's amazing how, well, I'm into language with the NLP stuff, and how
mm.
just changing that changes how their perception of what's coming next
I
and
love
opens
that.
up pathways.
I
No,
love
it's not
that.
plan B, it's future plan A. What are you talking about?
Mm,
Because plan B suggests failure.
mm,
There's all those old adages, isn't it? Don't have a plan B because it means you're going to fail at plan A, which I
mm.
think in this day and age, I think it's wise to kind of think. And that takes me back to saying to people, don't wait until you lose your job or you're fed up with your job. Start
Mm.
thinking now. I mean, it's what I wish I'd done. Start thinking now about what you would possibly like to do. Go explore. I say to people, go explore, go do a day course, try a willow course, try a photography course, try a gardening course, just go see
Mm,
now what actually takes your interest. So I think that's
that's,
and what makes you happy, which brings us back to that.
yeah.
What makes you happy?
Mm. That's such a like that's a nugget right there because I'm guilty of for myself saying my plan B, and it's weird because I don't think of it as a derogatory plan. It's really, as a coach of mine used to call it, your best next steps. It's your best next steps plan, and it's a bit like, and I was thinking about this last night. I was like, I really fancy a big piece of chocolate cake. I was really craving for it, which made me think maybe I need magnesium, and I was trying to, rationalize it and justify it. And then I said to myself, okay, if I go and buy a bit of cake from the shop and don't even make it, it's going to be packed with loads of rubbish in it. If I eat that tonight, will I regret that when I'm going, oh, my middle seems to be expanding, or I feel really sluggish, or my eyes feel crusty because I've had too much sugar? So, thinking about what's next and making our choices now. And for some reason, corporates tend to forget that that's a natural part of life, so they
Hmm.
go forward and do that. So I love that reframe of the plan B, because I've said plan B, C, D, E, F, then you've got options, you've got choices. But actually, I think so embedded into our culture is the fact that B isn't as good as A. And,
Correct.
judging by the people that you coach, because I have more private male clients and female clients as
So do
well,
I. Yeah,
very
absolutely.
driven. So of course a plan B isn't going to resonate with them because they're like, I want plan A plus plus plus.
Yeah.
This is what I want. So yeah, yeah,
No, no,
really.
that's absolutely what I work with now, and it works so much better because then otherwise there's a kind of a little bit of a barrier. Well, that says I've failed, or I'm not as good, or it's not as important, or no, no, no. It removes all of that and
Yeah,
allows them to think about what they want to do in the future,
yeah.
and what they want to try. And again, people think, oh, what? And I'm quite surprised. Oh, there are courses in that I can just do over a weekend. Yes. You think,
You can do
yes.
literally anything.
Anything, absolutely. Go
Did
learn to
you
dance,
know
go to cook.
there was a guy in America? I don't even know his name. He's a premium cartwheel coach. I think his minimum program was like $10,000 teaching people how to cartwheel. That
Wow.
was book solid. I was just like, that's amazing to me. I'm fascinated by how that came about. But you can learn how to do anything these days, you
And
know?
that's also with clients. I mean, that's a good example of saying nothing, no idea is stupid. I used to say at work, I'll throw in, and I do now with the charity I work with, I'll throw in 20 ideas. I
Mm,
don't expect you to like or even appreciate one, but it might spark something else.
Yeah.
And that is a story I read. I can't remember, I read it now in a book years ago that stayed with me, where a big electric company in, I think it was Canada,
Hmm.
was struggling and having to pay a fortune because in the winter the snow got onto the lines would break, electricity. So they had a meeting about, well, how do we do this? And pricing it. Somebody came up with the idea, well, if we could just get the telegraph poles to shake, it would shake all the snow off. And it's like, oh, well, there's wild bears. Why don't we put meat up the telephone pole? And the bears will come along, they'll try to get the meat, they'll shake the pole, all the snow falls off. Brilliant idea. Let's go and investigate. So they went to investigate. Said, "Well, go, go fly down the line and see how many there are and where we think it would be suitable." Well, of
Mm.
course, what happened? The helicopter went out to fly down the line, and just flying down the line
Shook
blew
this.
all the snow off. Saved the company hundreds of thousands in repair. And that's what I
Mm.
always say to my clients: no idea is crazy. You investigate it, don't you? And oh, actually, oh no, I could do that. Well, like you and I have been saying about, oh, I could do this, I could do this.
Mm.
So yeah, it's all of that really, Jenny.
And that's a much better story than the Viagra story, which we've all heard so many times now, how it was accidentally created and all of that. I love that. Yeah, I love those accidental kind of discoveries as well. And it's funny because I've got this weird brain that says plan, put a plan in half of it, but also leave room for the magic. And that kind of thing is exactly what happens along the way. Because, I was talking about my plan B. I'm going to change the language around that. But my plan B actually came from me sitting and saying, here's what today looks like. Here's what I'd like the future to look like. What's got to
Mm,
change? I shared with you before that I'd said, oh, I want to retire at 55.
mm,
And then all of a sudden, like 55 is in like a couple of years. And then you start to look at, well, have I got everything in place to be able to retire? And for me, I made some really stupid financial choices. I'm not going to beat myself up about it, but they weren't the most savvy or wise financial choices. In hindsight, if I had said yes to certain things, like even 20 years ago, then I would be in a different position now. So
mm,
instead of beating myself up about it, I asked myself my favourite question: what can I do differently next time? And next time is like in the next minute in moving forward with my retirement plan. So I started to explore all sorts of things about like who I am as a person, what I
mm,
could potentially do next, and a bit like you, I love the polymaths. I like the different ideas. I think it's the reason why so many people are entrepreneurial. They've got lots of ideas all
mm.
the time. So like looking into different things like that. And I'll pause there for a minute. What were you going to say?
I was just going to say it's like talking to Eleanor. She makes wool and willow coffins. And I came across her on Instagram. Well, I was referred
Those.
to her. And this again, I saw some wool pots and I spoke to Graham, and Graham referred me to the person who makes sustainable rope. And I spoke to Kate, so I've got really friendly with her. And then she referred me, oh, you've got to talk to Eleanor. So I then spoke to Eleanor, and we were talking. She used to do felting, and she used to make little felt things. And she's on my podcast, I think, quite a way back. And then she used to do fascinators and so on. But then, no, I want to do more to help the wool industry. And she developed the idea of making willow and wool, British wool coffins. But as we were both saying, no skill you've learned in the past is ever wasted, because you never know when you're going to need it in the future. And her classic was, well, I made felt things. And then she does obviously little baby coffins, and she felts beautiful little flowers now that goes on there. She said, so the skill I thought I'd lost over there by making coffins over here, I'm now using that skill. And she's then developed it even further. So again, people go, is that a waste of time? No, because I've learned you never know when you're going to call on that skill again. I mean, believe it or not, I trained as a sound engineer back in the 70s and used to do freelance work with the BBC out on their outside broadcasts, crawling under floors and up in ceilings. And then I just didn't do it. And part of the reason for starting my podcast was to get back into the modern way of, editing, if you like. Gone are the days of having a little bit of chalk and a little splicer and, cutting a tiny bit of tape and sticking it because you might need it. And again, it's those ideas, isn't it? Nothing's ever wasted. When people say, oh, well, that's a waste of time, or you'll have people say, why are you doing that course? You're not interested in that, but it's
Yeah, but
never a waste of time.
someone else's dream isn't someone else's plan. So I always think it's interesting when someone says, "Oh, I'm going to start doing this thing." Like, who is a person outside of you to say, "Well, that's rubbish"? And is it wrong to say the thought of we're all going to need a coffin at some point?
Mm.
Thought of a willow and wool coffin. It's
Oh,
like,
they're beautiful.
bring it on.
Yeah.
Sounds crazy to me. Can we have it on the record, please? Anyone watching this? Come back to this moment. I want one. I want to be cozy. I'm cozy in life, so
Oh
why not
yes, and she
cozy
makes
instead?
lovely woolen interiors and the pillow, and I mean, just perfect.
Mm,
And fits with again your values. It comes back to that, doesn't it? And how you're
mm.
living life, and never being afraid to change, Jenny, the habits or the beliefs that you've had, in
Yeah.
the past. To say, "Oof, no, oh no, I'm not going to do that." To
Mm,
reevaluate and say, "No, actually, I've changed my mind." And I think too many
yes.
people are afraid to say that because of what other, oh, well, you always have said, and
Mm,
we were talking about organ donation. I was talking to Clive and I was always against it. Oh
mm,
no, I don't want to donate if anything happened to Clive or any of my loved ones. But I've changed my mind,
mm,
quite a few years ago. Hang on a minute, different view here. If I'm prepared to accept it for Jackson or for Clive or whatever, then somebody's got to donate. But
mm,
none of us kind of reevaluate often enough and go,
yeah,
do you know what? I've rethought about that. And I
mm,
see it from a different perspective because they're afraid, particularly with social media and everything, of being made to feel small. Well, you always said, family will say it, won't they? Oh, well, you always said you wanted to do. Yes,
mm.
well, I don't. I've changed my mind.
Yeah, it's so important, the whole change in your mind thing. I saw a lot of that kind of coming out of 2020 when people started to talk about race and George Floyd and all of that.
Yeah.
And despite what it seems like in the world, there are a lot of people that blatantly changed their minds. They said, you know what, I had prejudice, and I began to understand and learn this, or because this has happened, I've
Yeah.
changed my mind. That, they would say things like, I'm not proud of saying that, I'm not proud of who I was, but I've changed my mind. And I think it takes a really special person to be able to admit that what
Mm.
they felt before now feels wrong to them. It's not
Yes.
about finger pointing or cancelling people or anything like that, but for someone to stand up and say, you know what, I thought this was the best way to raise my kids, but actually I now understand that. Or I thought that this was the best way to live my life or be healthy or unhealthy,
Mm.
and now I've changed my mind. And to actually express that and articulate that with anybody, it doesn't have to be a big, Facebook Live on social media. It could just be to their partner or their friends. But I think to express that, it takes a really self-aware but special type of person to do that. So
Yeah.
when someone, and again, this probably is around my values, but when somebody starts to talk about that or displays that, it definitely makes me want to lean in and listen more
No,
and
I
judge
agree with
less,
you.
you know.
Because that says that somebody's actually paying attention, is learning. And that's where
Mm,
prejudice comes from, doesn't it? We
yeah,
don't learn.
yeah,
And we get embedded in our prejudice and discrimination without actually going out there, learning the facts, knowing what's what, and very much like to do that. So,
yeah. And a lot of people tell me that, or specifically on that topic, told me that, well, I don't really even know why. I guess, maybe my parents felt this
mhm.
way and used to talk about it, and they learnt it from them. And I always think that's interesting because I think, well, then you've got another set of people whose parents were a certain way and they're like, I don't want to be like them. So, what was the difference that made the difference? But yeah.
I
Yeah.
mean, that comes down to everything, covers everything, isn't it? You know, if your
Mm.
parents tended to vote one way, then unless you explored it, you voted that way. You know, my parents were very religious. My dad died when I was young. So my mum and we went to church and I went to Sunday school and blah, 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 blah. And then I started going, and I was confirmed, you know, I just went with the flow without questioning it in your young years, if you like, my early teenage years. And then I started to question, hang on a minute. Then I started to do a bit more research, and my beliefs are very different now.
Mm.
So, you know, I'm not religious in that way. I do believe in other stuff, but I did do a lot of really digging deep and say, am I just following the herd here? And also, there's the pressure then. Of course, you go to somebody's wedding and you're in church. Do I sing? Do I pray? Just because everybody else is when I don't believe it? Actually, I don't. You know,
Mm.
but people say, well, so why are you going? Well, because it's my friend's wedding. I respect what they want,
Mm.
but it doesn't mean to say that I have to do that, you know. But I'll
Yeah.
go
Yeah.
uh, to celebrate it with them. But
I
yeah,
didn't know that about you, and it's interesting because I've got a similar background. And you know, my mum and dad were quite religious. My mum more so, and from the age of about 4, going to Sunday school, we went to a church though that was it started in someone's house. It was very what's termed as happy clappy, so it was quite
yeah,
a nice environment to be in,
yeah.
tambourines, that kind of stuff. And then I got to about 16, and I remember thinking, like, if God is supposed to be a God of love, why does he look down on us and go, you did that wrong, burn in hell? You know, like, that doesn't seem very like loving or nice. And I remember saying to my mum, I'm not going to come to church anymore. You can't
That's
make
right.
me. It was like I couldn't reconcile that in my head. It wasn't that I
Yeah.
hated the church or anything. I just couldn't reconcile it. So I went down the school of the way of the rave, as me and my friend used to call it, and I became an old school raver. And for a few years, I wondered whether I was trying to buck the trend of something that
Mm,
was very different to church. But actually, it was like, for me, it was a community. You know, it was a community of people. So I kind of swapped my religion to a different type of religion. Great
mm.
music and things like that, in my opinion, not in anyone else's. And yeah, it's just, and all these years later, you kind of see these, 30 years, 40 years later, all these kind of rave groups like the Prodigy and people like that are still going. And I just think now, if somebody said to me, which somebody a couple of weeks ago said, are you religious? I said, I'm not religious, I'm more spiritual. And I
Yes,
feel like I've
me too.
kind of like taken pieces from different religions because it feel and it's really hard to articulate, but it's like, yes, you know the difference between right and wrong and all of that kind of stuff. But I think the world becomes a more expansive place when you look at how other people tread through the world, what they believe to be true, very esoterical, in my views. I
Mm.
mean, half of these books here, including yours, is here. I should have put it out to show everyone. Um, but a lot of the books, you know, I've got Wayne Dyer, I've
Yeah.
got Gabrielle Bernstein, I've got all sorts of different people, got Richard up there as well, but you know, all sorts of different things and ideas and concepts. And I feel happier within myself going down that path. That, you know, all of that to say, I've got clients who are very heavily religious,
Yeah.
and so when they use the word God, it doesn't, you know, it doesn't freak me out. I'm like, it's, you know, what
It's
you
what they believe, it's how they operate. My sisters
exactly.
are very similar, and
Mm.
that's fine, you know. And I was the one in the family that was like, well, it just doesn't fit or sit right for me.
Yeah.
But I'm happy to respect what every other, you know, everybody else wants in that
Mm.
way, and in lots of things in life as well. You know, it's about but then it's about finding information, as you're just saying, Jenny, reading widely, you know, and finding out how other people operate and cherry picking. I
Yeah.
call it cherry. Yeah, that resonates with me. Oh, that resonates with me. Whether
Mm.
it's the coaching tip, you and I both like David Hamilton, Dr. David
Yes.
Hamilton, and his books, you know, and you know, they're on my shelf as well. Uh, but that's part of it for me. And maybe it's a people person. I don't know. I love to know what makes other people tick? What makes you think like that? How did that come
100%.
about? What is it about that? And I love those conversations, but it
Mm,
seems that even those conversations seems to be shutting down. We're not allowed to debate stuff anymore. At
mm,
universities, and oh no, I've got my opinion and I've got my opinion. I remember debating societies at school,
mm.
where you had every week a topic and two people would talk on one and two people would do the reverse, and you have the chair in the middle. Nobody fell out with each other at the
No.
end, and then we voted at the end, do you go with or against? And it was just great. We listened to different points of view, and then we all left after lunch and went, oh, we didn't fall out with people because they felt differently.
I think that's a sad thing that I notice for me, because I strongly believe whether I agree with somebody or disagree with somebody,
Mm.
that to me isn't the crux of a conversation.
Mm-hmm.
I think being able to express what we feel and why, where I maybe tend to shut down, because I'm not perfect, but where I'll shut
Me
down
either.
is when someone like comes at you with a
Yeah.
different opinion, and when you ask them for more information, they either go quite defensive. Well, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
going to talk to you about that. You're obviously not willing to listen. I'm like, what part of art's going to question is that? Not willing to
Yeah.
listen. Or they regurgitate something that's been heard. And I'm like, no, but tell me from your experience, what is it about this that feels so important to you? Well, go and look at so and so's video on YouTube. They talk about that. And, I find that a lot with sorry if I'm about to offend anyone, the flat earther community.
Yeah.
I'm intrigued why somebody believes that. I'm not judging it. I've yet to find somebody that says, I believe this because, without going, I believe it because
Because
watch
so and so
so
said
and
it. Yeah.
so's video, and if they talk about it, and I'm like, no, but from your perspective, like I really genuinely want to understand. So yeah, so that's
But people
I'm
see that
very,
sometimes, Jenny, as a criticism. You're criticizing me, and just by
yeah, and I'm
asking, what is it
totally
you bring?
not.
I just want to know what makes you tick, basically.
Yeah,
How did you come to that? And
yeah,
maybe it's because people actually haven't questioned it themselves. You know
yeah.
what I mean? So I'm religious because my parents are religious, but I haven't actually questioned what's
Mm,
behind that. And do I
yeah,
really believe that? For example, going back to the
yeah,
topics we shouldn't talk about, type
yeah.
thing. But anyway, always good to talk to you, Jenny. And we must do some more of these chats
Yes.
and take it forward from there. So lots of little tips from you today. Thank you very much. And I hope our viewers and listeners, because it'll be both audio and video. If you're watching this on video, then you'll be watching it on my YouTube channel, and audio, it goes out. I'm not a big Facebook person, so it doesn't tend to go on there. I only use Facebook for our community village to see what's happening and
You.
what roads blocked. So. Jenny, thank you. Let's do this again. It's been great. And to people watching and listening, thank you very much for taking time out of your day to listen to Jenny and I, and be open to listening to our views. Would you agree, Jenny? It's about
I absolutely would. I absolutely would.
you. Take care, and it's been good to talk to you. And let's do another one a bit more frequently, just talking
Yes.
generally, I think. Give
Yes. So
people,
many topics to cover.
oh,
We didn't
so
even
many
talk
to
about the
tackle.
bookshelf either.
No, we haven't. Or we haven't talked about happiness and versus contentment. That's another
No, we
one. So
haven't.
lots to talk about. You take care, and I'll speak to you soon.
All right then. Bye.
Bye. I hope you enjoyed listening to Jenny and I have a chat about this, that, and everything else, really. If you'd like to catch up with Jenny on social media, then you can find her on Instagram as the Queen of Being Seen. On YouTube and LinkedIn, she's just Jenny Kovacs. That's Kovacs. And on Facebook, she's the Visibility Vibe. As we said, we will be doing another podcast, and if you'd like to make sure that you get every single one of my episodes, then please go to GillHB and Friends and subscribe. Thank you very much for listening to this one. You'll find all my other episodes there, and I hope you'll join me on the next episode.